Hey, I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. We're glad you're here. Subscribe to it. Give this video a like.
We got a podcast below in the description. I need you to go subscribe, and I need you to tell 20 of your friends about it.
Check out sleepnumber.com/ham.
Yep. Get a bed. Sleepnumber.com/ham.
Aaron Rodgers, John. He's back. And he's a Packer. He spoke today, was very public, was very open in public comments. What'd you think?
Well, I think his hair flowing out the back is awesome. If I were you and I could grow hair, I would be going for a look like that. I mean, there is no better look, in my opinion, than a hat with a guy and just that incredible flow at the back. Because who knows? Maybe it's messy, maybe it's not, but that's a good look.
Great look with a hat and with a helmet. Hockey player, great look.
Oh, yeah.
When I played hockey in high school, I did it but my hair's curly, actually, believe it or not. Gets very curly. Looks great out of the hockey helmet. But if you look at my senior photo, well,
yeah, you can straighten it.
Goatee, not really my look either, but that was a whole other period of time.
Well, I actually thought he had a lot of good points. And it all gets back to something that happened. And listen, we all do it, right? In any industry you work in, you make bets, right? On the future, on employees, on the path of what's going to be successful in that given business to try to ultimately, in football, win games. In most businesses, to make money. In football, you win, you make money. The Packers made a bet. And honestly, it wasn't that crazy. He hadn't played that well in 19. And in 18, remember, that was the year McCarthy got fired middle of the season. He was looked off. He had looked off for a couple years. And in the history of our lifetime in sports, guys at his age, in basketball, baseball, and football, that once you say over that like 35 number, sometimes a lot of guys started to decline. Mm-hmm. And they drafted a quarterback shorting his career. And it backfired. Now, I think when they made the decision, I don't think it was that crazy. Though his season statistically it looked decent in 19. Their team, they had a lot of success, right? They won the division. They were in the NFC Championship game. Though that game wasn't close, how many teams in the league would have signed up for that? Really, every team but 4. But they bet against him. And I think that was kind of a nail in the coffin of him being pissed off. Like that's ultimately, he can say all these other personnel decisions. That to me was the straw that broke the camel's back, as they would say, and I don't think he's ever recovered from that.
Yeah, and
not from a play standpoint, but from mentally, and he was very open about that today.
I would combine that with it's exacerbated by the fact, and maybe it's the same thing. It's not just that they drafted the guy; it's that they didn't tell him about it, and then they made other moves without asking him anything. And that's why I really appreciated his honesty, which was, hey, I get that you can't ask every player their opinion on every move, but you should ask Aaron Rodgers. He didn't say it. He didn't go first person, but he said you should ask your multi-time MVP who just won another MVP and is one of the best players in the history of the sport. That guy should be an exception. He said it. There are exceptions. Tom Brady's an exception. I'm an exception. He's right. I mean, the thing that makes it so bizarre is that he is there because they did the exact same thing to Brett Favre, and somebody brought that up in the press conference. I do think for all of the Aaron is back and Aaron's got control, they still have him under contract for 2 years. I mean, the result of all of this was that instead of his contract voiding after the 2023 season, it now voids after the 2022 season. So they still have him for this year, and they still have him for 2022.
Can't franchise.
Cannot franchise, but if they were going to short him 2 years ago, then, they're like, well, are we 100% sure he's still a star 2 years from now? Now, what do you do? Is this the last year he plays with the Packers? He plays well. You trade him so you can get something for him on the last year of his deal? Or do you go, we'll just ride this out 2 more years, and then we'll move on after that? Time will tell. We don't know yet. It depends how he plays this year. It depends what they think of Jordan Love. But that's where it stands right now, and he didn't get total control back. He just got a year back.
One piece of insight, though, he gave that I think if I was a diehard Packer fan, I'd still be going into this a little nervous, just big picture how this is all going to play out. His desire, and I guess he stated this before, but to be a Packer and retire a Packer, like to just play for this one brand his whole life, and talking to different guys that didn't get that opportunity and how they kind of look back and, just regret the way things played out.
Mm-hmm.
you and me are in our mid-30s. In our lifetime, as we kind of came into our own in the early 90s, I'd say from 93 till today, there are not, and I would include basketball and baseball, they're a top 10 brand in America when it comes to sports. And a huge reason of that is Brett and Aaron. But like the case is, with those two guys, they are bigger than basically the majority of teams, not in the NFL, but in sports. And he knows that, right? I thought like when he talked about, he understands, I think, the power of the brand. Do you agree with that?
Yep.
Like where he's playing and the importance of the franchise and his role as the best player on one of the most important franchises in the league. So I actually think he kind of pushed it back on, like he was so candid and so open, pushes it back on the general manager. And they have always been a general manager run organization since Ron Wolf started. And listen, I don't blame them for drafting Jordan Love. But once Aaron started to play like he played, I do think you have to turn into a little, and we know this guy well, but Bob Myers, and NBA guys have to do this. I think in baseball you have to do it a little too, which is very player friendly. Like you kind of have to kiss if you have a Derek Jeter, if you have, a Buster Posey, if you have a Steph Curry, if you have a LeBron James, like you talk like we're in this together. And I don't think Gutekunst, and listen, I've been lucky enough to just know a lot of the quote unquote scouts in the league. Like most people wouldn't have that in the bag. It's a tough thing to be able to do. Part of the reason why Bob Myers
skill than scouting.
Yeah. I mean, part of the reason Bob Myers is good at it because that was his skill before he ever got into scouting. And clearly Gutekunst, and in fairness to Rodgers, like once I started kicking ass, and it was clear early on, to me, is it not on Gutekunst to really do everything humanly possible to repair that relationship? And maybe he was pushing him away a little bit. Maybe he tried. I'd be shocked.
Yeah, the things that Aaron seems to be most upset about happened before the season started, right? The pick, the non-communication on the pick, the cutting of the receiver that he really liked who ended up, I think, on the Bills, who thought, and Aaron said he was having a great camp, right? Things that Aaron would say, you as the GM can't know as well as I can know whether or not a guy's having a great camp. You can come to the field, you can talk to LaFleur, but if anybody knows which receiver's having a great camp, it should be me. So so these things happened. The Packers' incentive to listen to Aaron is completely tied to how good Aaron is. And you're right, even though they had a great year 2 years ago, after that year ended, a lot of the talk was, even as the year went along, was like, is Aaron Rodgers, are we seeing the end now? His arm doesn't look as strong, all this stuff. Well, he came back with a vengeance in 2020. And maybe some of the concrete had already dried on the relationship by that point, at least from his perspective. But that's where, to your point, he's still under contract for 2 years. So do you make it?
They're not going to go through this again. I don't think.
Meaning what?
Like if this situation that happened this summer, if it does not go well from a personal standpoint, like I can't see them running it back with this guy and like him keep showing up. Like
if they go 13-3 again, and all that means is he misses OTAs in 2021 or 2022.
Well, to me, if they go 13-3 again, he is not going to play as a 1 year remaining on his deal. Like that would come to the point of, have you repaired the relationship? Because then it's on Gutekunst.
Well, this is my point. Is they have 2 years, right?
But really, they have one.
They have one, unless they're willing to go, we're just going to play Aaron Rodgers as our quarterback for 2 more years, and then whatever happens, happens.
But my point is if this year happens and he's still like they separate the organization. He had a line in there. He's like, I love playing for the Packers. I love the fans, and he jumped really quick because he's like, I'm not kissing these motherfuckers' ass yet. And I was like, you know what? I appreciate that. They do have to earn, like, he is right. Like, I'm better than everyone else. We all know it. I know it. It's not even an ego thing. And he said, listen, I appreciated him saying this. I'm not trying to play the victim here. I make a ton of money. Like, I'm not acting like feel sorry for me. But the point is, I'm better than everyone else. That's the elephant in the room that literally all asking me questions. The organization knows it. I'm just asking to have somewhat feel like they value that. Now, like, he brought up a couple guys that it becomes a slippery slope. What's Billy Beane's big thing? Like, I tried to separate because I didn't want emotion to get involved. And he brought up one, like, I think he's right maybe on the young wide receiver, right? Maybe that's something like I think we could have had a good rapport. But when you bring up Charles Woodson, who you and I were lucky enough to be around at training camp when he left them and go to the Raiders, and Jordy Nelson, that gets the older stuff in the NFL is a tougher decision, I think. because of course he's going to stand with the Randall Cobbs, the Charles Woodsons, the Jordy Nelsons, and never want those guys to leave, and I don't blame him. But wouldn't you agree that most times in the NFL, that is something GMs are relatively pretty good at?
Well, they're selling early, right? They're trying, and they try to do it with him. They're constantly trying to sell early. The cost is very high. The cost is based on production, not on anticipating what the future is going to bring.
Yeah, and you have to remove name recognition from what the guy is at that given point. I mean, every year, AJ Green,
and you're deep
Patrick
in the cap
Peterson's.
too, right? We're talking about expensive players potentially.
I do agree with him though on maybe a young practice squad guy. Like, I'm with this guy. Like, ask me what you think. And I think it's one thing. I bet that he feels like we're talking about him, and then all of a sudden he gets on the ticker. Someone texts him like, they cut Billy. You're like, what?
Yeah.
That clearly was an issue. Remember that was tweeted last year, and people were like, are we serious? That was a big issue for him.
Yep. And he said it before too. Like, it was pretty clear it was a big issue for him.
That felt like one of the bigger issues last year that kept him pissed off, right?
Yes. Yeah. It was. It was a major part of this.
Because in fairness to him, he goes, I'm having an incredible camp. Like, clearly he felt confidence going into the season. And this guy, he called him the number 2 wide receiver in camp. So that means obviously Devontae. He goes, this guy's killing it. I'm killing it with him. And then you just get rid of him? Like, what are we doing here?
And then it only gets every time, Valdez Scantling drops. Was it him or the other guy that dropped a bunch of passes?
It was 83. Valdez Scantling, it felt like drops
Every
off.
time he dropped the ball, Aaron would get pissed.
I felt like Lazard.
Yeah. Alan Lazard.
But that's part of it. The group beside the one guy is a bunch of randoms. So why wouldn't you go like, what random do you want? Right? It'd be one thing if it's like, they got Rice, Taylor, and Michael Irvin. There's not much room. That's not the case with this team.
No. The funny thing is, as we're talking, I'm starting to think like the worse Aaron is, the more likely he is to be on another team in 2022. The better he is, the less incentive they have to trade him, even if they could get a first-round pick back for him. Because if he's good, they're winning 13 games.
I have a hard time seeing them not being good, man. Their offense is pretty stacked.
It's crazy.
And it does feel like he's kind of in this mode of just like double guns blazing. A little like Brady with Tampa. Like, okay.
Yeah, except he's still on the team. So the more FU great performances he has, the more the team benefits.
But I think he talked about that today. I don't think he necessarily I think he knows what he has. I thought he was pretty open about like understanding. He doesn't think like there's some dump organization, some losing organization. And here's another big reason why I think Gutekunst has a chance to salvage this. He does feel like he likes the coach. He even said, like, me and LaFleur's have it's been fun.
Right.
Like, he likes being with him.
Right.
Which to me is pretty important because that's really the guy he spends the most time around. And it's easy for LaFleur to be like, Gutekunst, I wanted to keep him. He wouldn't listen to me.
It'll be interesting to see what happens here. Because he said he doesn't expect to be asked any questions about anything in terms of personnel by the front office. Because he was asked, like, is it going to get awkward when people are suggesting that you're the one that made one move? And he said, well, no, because I don't expect to be asked anything.
But you agree now I would say once you get close to that third preseason game toward the big cutdown, you have to bring them into a meeting, right?
I would. Yes, I would.
I'm saying if you want to salvage.
Yeah, well, if you want to salvage it, yeah.
How would you not want to salvage it, though?
Because, again, I think you could look at it like we don't have to play his game. He's under contract for 2 years. As a 39, 40-year-old, whatever, we'll deal with it, and then we'll move on.
Is he really asking for that much, though?
Not if what he's asking for privately is also what he's asking for publicly.
Yeah, which you never know.
And do you just want my 2 cents, or do I have to do the things that you're saying? Because the best question was like, Aaron, you would have made some bad decisions.
Well, here's what I'd do if I was Gutekunst. I'd ask him, and then I'd be like, okay, here are 87 practice squad guys all around the league. Break these down. We'll get back to you. If that's what happens.
We're going to send you a Google Doc. It's just the cap. If you could let us know how to massage a few of these contracts.
Just rank we have put together a list of 30 undrafted free agents all over preseason. Just rank them for us.
That would be something if they're like, look, Aaron, here's the deal. Here's what we can pay Devontae. Just go talk to Devontae and see if he'll take less based on you go to negotiate Devontae's contract.
Yeah.
This is all. I'm glad he's back, John. I'm glad he's on the Packers. This is great.